Sai. All right. So we again, so as promised, we have uh, Pawan Power Sai or Power Power Sai from our COE team to talk to us about DAX, and I will let him. Yamini from Andhra Pradesh, Ilan from Puducherry. Okay, so Pawan is going to lead us uh, with DAX information today, and we are happy to have him. Pawan Sai, we'll have some more fun during the class, but you can now formally begin.
Yes, sir. Uh,
Yay!
Good morning, everyone. And
Good morning,
thank
Pawan Sai.
yes. Thank you for taking out time on Sunday morning and attending the session. I hope it will be something worthwhile
Today is
to.
Saturday, brother.
Okay. So
See all the love you're getting even before starting the session.
yes. So I hope you'll get some worthwhile worthwhile time
Yes, sir.
here. Please let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible
Yes, yes,
now.
screen is visible.
Yes. Before talking about DAX, I would like to show the standard reference place where you must go to. Okay, I'll go to Chrome, just type DAX reference. Okay, you'll be landing into this first website of Microsoft. Click on that. Okay, you'll be getting into this fantastic website where we have all the details about DAX. Okay,
This is what I love about you. You take us from the very beginning, very softly till the very end, and you cover all the things. I mean, this is the first. If I was like a big like as a words fresher, I keep calling myself. If I had to, this is where I would start. So thank you for like taking us from the very basics.
so before understanding what is DAX, if we open this DAX function reference, you'll see something learn section and DAX function section. Although there are multiple other sections, just click on this learn section, open the DAX overview. You'll get this DAX overview. You can start reading it from beginning. It fantastically explains you what is DAX. I'll just take a moment to explain. DAX is nothing but data analysis expressions, right? So it is a simple acronym which is used for data analysis expressions. It is formula expression language used in analysis services, Power BI, Power Pivot in Excel. These three places you can use DAX, and it is very powerful. Okay, moving ahead, DAX, you need to use DAX formulas to make calculations, right? That you understand. In order to make calculations, what all you use? We make measures, we make calculated columns, we make calculated tables, and there is something called row level security. Let us understand about measures and calculated columns meanwhile. Okay, I'll take some sample data set where suppose that I take this store sales.
Uh, Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Can you please share the Excel sheet with us also so that we can also work on
You
the
you
Power
can
BI
take
learning?
you can take any Excel sheet, not a problem. Take any random Excel sheet where you have some sales data or any random website, any data you have, not a problem. It is just a basic thing which I'm explaining. Don't worry.
Sure, sir.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Is it better now, guys? I'm sharing the full screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
So before understanding measure and calculated columns, like in the Excel, suppose that here I have unit price and unit cost, and suppose I wanted to calculate sales. Can anyone tell me how to calculate sales? Or you can say
we
sales
can
amount.
we can multiply with unit price and
Yes. We just multiply this unit price multiplied with unit cost,
quantity. Okay.
right? So this is evaluated in a particular row. Okay. If I just fill it down, every row you could see. Okay, what I'm doing is to Instead of multiplying it with quantity, I'm multiplying with cost. Okay, now I have multiplied price with quantity, which gives me the sales amount. If I fill it down, we get all the values. Now this is something called as calculated column. If we do the same in the Power BI, as simple as that. Okay, here we are making a column. Even in Power BI, we'll be making a column, and this type of action that we do by making a column, which adds data to the physical data, which is present in the in our source, it is called as calculated column. Okay, first thing. And calculated column, if you could observe carefully, this price, okay, this price value, it is getting multiplied with the quantity row wise, right? That is where something comes into picture, nothing but row context. Okay, now I'll be talking about row context, filter context throughout the session. Please try to understand and keep answering me and be interactive enough. So we have this calculated column which by default acts in row context. So is this calculated column and the row context term, is this clear?
I'm looking at Anaka Mayabhat to give Nikhil Uppal and Anaka Mayabhat to lead this conversation by giving some answers.
Understood, sir.
Hello.
Understood, sir. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. Moving ahead, now suppose that you can ask me, Pawan, I don't want to calculate sales amount in this way. I just wanted to find out the total sales. Okay, what you can do is you can do something called as sum, and you can just select the whole column. Okay, I can just close the bracket, hit enter. This is my total sales. Am I right? Total aggregated sales. And this is a scalar distinct value where it produces the result for me. So this is this calculation aggregation where we make depending on a particular column or particular value or any condition. It is called as measure. We are measuring something based upon a condition, or even based upon a column or any context which we have. Okay, what is that context known as? Filter context. Okay, by default measure acts with respect to filter context, and by default calculated column acts with respect to row context. Okay, this thing I hope it is very clear in Excel, right? Let us move ahead and let us understand in Power BI. Okay, I'll minimize this. Let us go to Power BI. Let us understand the row context within the data. Okay, we have this fact sales table. Yesterday we have gone through it. Now in order to make a calculated column, what I'll do, I'll click on this new column. Now in the same way as we do in Excel, suppose that I want to calculate sales amount. What I'll do is I'll multiply quantity multiplied by unit price. Okay, here I'll hit enter. Here you could see that similarly, as is shown in Excel, this unit price, it is multiplied with quantity, and each row we are getting the results where calculated column is acting in row context, right? Row context is very clear where every row it is being iterated and calculation is being made. Okay, now let us understand what is measure, and how do we make a measure to understand sales amount. Okay, I'll go to report view. The best practice in order to make measures is by creating a measure table. Here we have something called as I'll type a name as measure table. I won't do anything. I'll just load it. Guys, allow me a minute. I'll be back. Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Here we have understood that we have it is acting in row wise. To understand measure, I have just created a measure table, empty table by selecting enter data in this home tab. Okay, I'll just select here, click on new measure. Now I'll write something called as sales measure equal to, I'll just write the aggregation which is sum of sales. Okay. Now what if I suppose that I'll go back to the data view. Okay, here which I have made the sales column in row context. Suppose imagine that I don't have that column in order to aggregate it. Okay, I'll remove this column. I'll right click and delete. Okay, row context we have understood as clear as possible that every row it is being iterated and the product is done. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll just write the same function, right? Suppose that, okay, there what we have done, we have taken fact sales. Okay, this is fact sales measure, sorry, column. If I'm trying to write fact sales, okay, you could see that I'm unable to get the column. Okay, so even if you try to write column manually by entering unit price, okay, unit price multiplied by fact sales quantity, it won't work. You could see that here there is error. If you hover over it, it will tell cannot find name unit price. Here you could see that some, okay, this is another thing. If I hit enter, it will throw another error mentioning that a single value of, I'll zoom it a little bit. Here you could see a single value of column unit price in the fact sales cannot be determined. This can happen when a measure formula refers to a column that contains many values without specifying an aggregation such as the other details are provided. Okay. Now what you have to, here you could see that without specifying an aggregation function such as min, max, count or sum to get a single result. Now we have understood that we can't make such iteration directly in order to make it possible in the measure. So to make it possible, suppose that if I write something called sum before it, okay, and if I write sum before it, the error will disappear. Okay, I'll just write sum before it. If I just execute, okay, now this error has disappeared which was thrown, but it still says that it cannot find unit price name. Okay, here if we go to the fact sales table, here you could see that unit price column is present, and even if it gets executed, okay, see now there is no error. Suppose that I'll take dim, from dim customer, I'll take just customer name. Okay, I'll just increase the size a little bit. Okay, I have increased the size, and now let us bring in the measure. Now you could see that the values are appearing, but do you think that these values are correct? Can anyone tell me, is this correct measure to write?
No.
No, it's not.
May I know why? Okay, I'll
Reason is
explain.
we haven't used any kind of calculated measures or anything like that. I think.
No,
It's
no,
just
no.
no.
There,
I guess
there is,
you need to use some X here, some X function.
let us get back to the iterator function, which is sum x. Before that, you need to understand why is this wrong. Okay, of course your answer is correct. We will use iterator function, but before that we need to understand why is this wrong. This quantity and unit price, they act in a row context. Okay, they act with respect to only particular value. If at all we are doing something called as sum, what it will do is it will go to the price column, it will aggregate all the values. Okay, so that all the aggregated values, if we are multiplying, it will throw us the wrong result. Let us go back to the Excel sheet. Let us understand in a very simplistic way. Okay, what I'll do is, suppose I'll write a quantity column, I'll write a price column. Okay, now this is my sales column which I'll evaluate. Suppose I have quantity of 25, price is some 50, 30, 60, some 35, and this is 70. Okay, these three rows are sufficient. What I'll do is I'll multiply this with price. This is my sales. Okay, now here I'll add the sales. Okay, now our total, this sum product, you understand sum product, right? The quantity multiplied by price individually and the aggregated value, it is the 5500. Now this thing, I use the aggregated function only when they are multiplied. Now what if I'll just, make the sum of quantity, and again I'll make the sum of price. If at all I multiply these two values, will I get the same value? Let us see. Are we getting the same value or a larger value?
Larger.
Larger. Why? Because the distribution or the weightage it has with respect to the particular value, aggregating it will mislead us to the wrong summation. So this basic thing we have to understand, how the sum function will mislead if we are aggregating it priorly. Okay, so this is important thing where you'll step into wrong results. So in order to understand it, in the Excel we have something called as sum product. We'll select this quantity, I'll put a comma, and we'll select this price, close the parenthesis and hit enter. We'll get this correct result. And to make this possible within our measure, we have something called iterator function. Okay, now you have understood this sum function, applying it for individual column, multiplying it with quantity, it will not give us the correct result. Okay, now let us leave this measure in the same way. We'll create a new measure by using the iterator function. Iterator function, what it does is it iterates each and every row and then aggregates the respective values, which enables us to write the expression which is required. To make it simple, I'll write sales amount equal to, I'll write something called as sum x. Okay, I'll open the parenthesis. We have table. What is our table name? Fact sales.
Fact
Okay,
sales.
and in the expression, what are we going to write is we need quantity. Now if you find the quantity, you'll find the column name. Okay, my intention is to multiply fact sales quantity with unit price column. Now we can absolutely understand that sum x, it is helping us to iterate in the fact sales table, and then it will evaluate quantity multiplied by price in each and every row. And then what it does is it brings the context into picture. Okay, and then it aggregates. Okay, I'll just select it. Now see this, before talking about the filter context, now what I'll do, I'll just select outside, click on the sales amount. If I click on the sales amount, you could see that it is giving me only the total sales amount. Here you could see it is some 39.2 million. It is providing me only the sales amount, which is aggregated value. Now you can ask me how is it separating that particular aggregated value with respect to each and every customer. Okay, that is where filter context comes into picture. Okay, the thing is, your aggregated value, your aggregated measure, what it is doing is, if at all you bring something into visual, the Power BI engine, the visuals have the ability to bring the filters, applied based upon the aggregated measure that you write. Okay, let us go back to the model and understand what I mean actually. Okay, here we have something called as customer table. Okay, so we have this relationship, right? This one relationship, we have this many relationship, and the data, you could see how it is flowing. So it is flowing from one to many. You could understand that this data flow which you see, you're not filtering the data with respect to the fact sales first. You're filtering the data based on the customer, and then it is propagated towards the fact sales, which is the target table. Okay, you must understand this. The data flow always, if one to many relationship, it flows from one side to many side. Okay, if you understand this, you'll understand how filter context is being acted. Moving ahead, just I have brought the unique customers, and based on the customers, filter context is being acted, and then the aggregated measure which we are writing, it is able to filter it based upon this, these customers, and then we are getting the appropriate results. Okay, this is the sales measure, which is the wrong measure. Now what I'll do is I'll add the another measure which we have created, which is sales. Now you could see that these are the correct values. Okay, I'll remove the wrong measure. Here you could see that 39.2 million, it is the correct measure which we have written using the sumx. Now you can ask me, Pawan, we have made it possible by multiplying quantity into price in the measure. Will this same function work in row context? Okay, I'll copy this. I'll go to data view, into the fact sales table. I'll scroll to the right. I'll select this column, click on new column. You have seen that if I multiplied just by quantity with price, it will be appearing correctly. Now I'm writing the same sales amount column. Okay, I'll just write one here if at all there is any issue. Here we have sales amount one column. We have the same sumx measure, same, which iterates. If I before committing it, can anyone tell me what would be the output? Hello,
I think it will throw an error, sir, actually.
sorry.
Because I think it will throw an error, sir, actually. That is because we are, I mean, for column, as you said, it's a row context. But for here, we only get, a single value out of everything. So I don't think, like it will be able to produce. I
Let,
think it will produce an error. I
okay,
think so.
yes, let us commit. You could see the value 39.2 million being populated in each and every row. Okay, now this value, although sumx, it helps us evaluate in row context for each and every row in the fact sales table. After that, you have to understand it aggregates also. Okay, so you have to understand how it is evaluating that. Although the expression is evaluated in row context, the filter is being acted on the fact sales table, where it evaluates and aggregates it. That is the reason why we have sales amount column. Okay, can anyone tell me what if I use calculate before sumx? Okay, in the calculate, the first expression is the expression, and then we can write filter arguments. Now we are in row context. Okay, now if I am using sumx, and what if I involve calculate? Can anyone tell me what it results?
It will produce different values, sir. That is row one.
Okay, if I commit, we get the values in individually. Can you explain why? So this is something where context comes into picture, where it is being evaluated and aggregated, and calculates, it modifies the filter. Okay, it what it does is, again, it iterates, and it will make every row an individual filter being applied, and then it help us evaluate to calculate the sales. This filter context and row context, you are clear, but these things, where you are trying to convert, you could say you are trying to make the row context change to filter context to use the calculate. You need to understand little more about context transition. As an advice or suggestion, try to learn these four things as far as best as possible. First thing is filter context. Second thing is row context. Okay. Third thing is context transition. How the filter context can be changed to row context, and row context can be changed to filter context. This, it is called as context transition. And fourth one is, as you know, iterator functions. Okay. Iterator functions, they are very they are powerful, but as well as you must be careful while using it. Not every time you could use it, and it really impacts the performance a lot if at all you use it in where use for the tables where it has to iterate each and every row. Okay.
Pawan,
These,
Pawan, can we stop at the screen for a few minutes? I need few volunteers from the audience, maybe 5 volunteers, because I'm going to ask very simple questions. A lot of people joined us uh, when the session was 20 minutes already live. So I'm going to ask few questions. Can I first have volunteers? Four or five volunteers. But I'm going to ask 5 questions. Be very basic questions. Who can I count on? Okay, Prem Sai is there. One. Anand Keys, fair. Shiva Reddy is done. Fantastic. Who else? I need 2 more. If you don't come up yourself, I'll nominate you. Okay, one of them is Anagha Mayabhate. And the last one is Aishwarya. Okay. So the question number 1, and it will recap what we learned so far with the Pawan Sai. So the first thing Pawan Sai started explaining was what is DAX and how it is used in Power BI. So imagine if this was an interview and you were supposed to answer this question: what is DAX and how is it used for Power BI? Can anyone in the audience, I mean, I know we have 5 volunteers who will answer the question, but how will you answer this question in an interview?
So may I answer the questions?
Sure, please.
So DAX is called as DAX is an expression where the full form states about data analysis expression, where it is used to calculate, measure. It is used for calculation in Power BI, where, like for calculation and used for measured columns. That is what it's mainly used in Power BI. So by using these, we'll be able to implement many amount of expressions such as sum x, product, sum product, calculated fields. So we will be able to calculate a lot of stuff in Power BI.
Correct. So as you rightly pointed out, DAX is basically data analysis expression. It's a formula language used in Power BI. It can perform calculations in data on data tables. It can provide a powerful set of functions and operators that can manipulate data, perform mathematical calculations, retrieve data from other tables. It can create custom calculations, metrics. It can create complex formulas and expressions and define relationship between the tables. So that's what DAX is all about. So if this was an interview, he would have passed with 100% marks on this question. Now let me give you a question number 2. And I want somebody else to answer this. Is there a difference between a calculated column and a measure in DAX? Difference between a calculated column and a measure. Yes, Prem.
Yeah. Okay. The calculated column, and the difference between calculated column and the measure is in calculated column, the formula which we have applied would be used for individual values, and for the measure it would be used the row as a total.
Fantastic. So that was a good answer. So basically what he's saying is, in DAX, a calculated column is a column that you add to a table. It contains a formula that is evaluated for each row in the table. That formula can be a simple expression, it can be a complex function, and it calculates a new value based upon the values in the other column in the same table. On the other hand, when we talk about a measure, Pawansai used something called as aggregation. So it's a calculation that aggregates data from one column or more columns of a table. It is used to visualize. It is used for visualizations to display data in charts, table, or other elements, right? So that's what is the difference between a calculated column and a measure. Question 3. How do you create a calculated column or a measure column in DAX? Anybody can answer this? How do you create a calculated column or a measure column in DAX? We haven't done that yet.
So I can say that when we are creating a calculated column, it will be working in the location of a data tables. Like it will be working only on the table panel. So when it comes to creating a measure, it will be mostly working on a report view.
Actually, you can go to report view in like it is not necessary to go to data view. What you can do is select the table, just click on new column, and you can make a calculated column, not a problem. But you have to understand how it is being evaluated. To make you understand, I went to the data view.
Right.
Even if you go to the model view, you can go to the same table and make a measure, make a calculated column. Power BI won't stop you from doing that.
So if this was, in other words, if this was an interview question, I would expect something on the lines of, you can use the add columns function or the calculated column feature in Power BI modeling tab. That's the other thing is, to create a measure in DAX, you can use a new measure button, which Pawansai was using. You can use a new measure button on the modeling tab, but just start by typing a formula in the formula bar, right? So measures are usually created using the sum, count, average, min, max function or other functions, right?
And one more thing is, if at all, if interviewer asks you about the differences, first and foremost difference that you would require to mention is calculated column. It occupies the physical space within the data. Hence, it also acts in the row context. That these two things, if you mention,
Yep.
it will be more clear. And
Very
measure, and yes, sir. And measure, it is not a column, but it is a virtual calculation, which is made, and it when it it executes, or it gives the output on the fly whenever you execute. Suppose that here I have made the sales amount measure, which is using this sum x, and if I until unless I bring into this table, I don't have the picture of it in the table. Okay, I don't have anywhere the picture of it in the fact sales table or a measure table anywhere. Okay, neither in the even in the model view, you can just see that a measure table is created and there is nothing else, right? If you just scroll down, you can see the names, but you can't do anything about it, right? Even if you go to Power Query, there you can't see the measures actually. So you have to understand, measures are the virtual calculations which are made and where it executes on the fly, whenever it is brought into the visual or picture. The Power BI engine evaluates the measure, and then it makes the filter context possible to filter the customer related values which are being applied on the table. Yes, sir, please go ahead. Thank you.
Correct, Prem. Thank you for writing that. I saw that. Question number 4, it's an interview question. And these 5 questions are the very basics of Power BI, which anybody can ask. And if you cannot answer these 5 basic questions, then they will doubt that you know anything more about DAX. So question 4 on the table is there a difference between a filter context and a row context in DAX? The difference between a filter context and a row context in DAX. We have Nikhil Uppal who wants to answer this. Go, Nikhil.
Sir, so basic difference between row context and filter context is that row context operates on one row at a time, whereas filter context operates on sets of rows at a given time, at the same time. So
Okay.
that's a basic difference we can.
So in other words, you're saying that there is a correct answer, by the way. A filter context is a set of filters that applies to all the calculations in a formula. It can be a filter on specific column, it can be a filter on table, or a combination of filters, right? On the other hand, the row context, when we talk about row context, it is created by iterating over the rows of a table and evaluating a formula or expression for each row, right? So what we are saying is, the short answer could be these two things are evaluated at different levels of granularity, and they can affect the results of calculations in different ways. So if you don't use them correctly, they will affect the results of the calculations. So we have to be very careful when we are learning row context or filter context. The last question is, and I need somebody who joined late.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you please repeat the answer you said before, sir, for filter and this row context?
So in DAX, a filter context is a set of filters that applies to all the calculations in a formula or expression.
Okay.
It can be a filter on specific column, a filter on entire table, or a combination of filters. So that's about the filter context. When we talk about the row context, it is created by iterating over the rows of a table, and you can calculate a formula or expression for each row. So what I said was that these are evaluated, these two contexts, the row context and the filter context, are evaluated at different levels of granularity, and they can affect the results of the calculation in different ways. Okay.
Yes, understood. Thank you, sir.
Question 5, the last question before we proceed with the onsite. Is there a difference between a calculated table and calculated column in DAX? And if so, what?
Yes, sir. Moving ahead, we have seen in the DAX reference that if I scroll up, DAX can be used in measures, DAX can be used in calculated columns, and DAX can also be used in calculated tables and also the row level security. Okay, we'll keep the row level security as a different topic for now. Here, the calculated tables. Here we have understood the new measure and the new column. There is something called as new table. Okay, here if you hover over it, you can see that write a DAX expression to create a new table. I'll create the new table. Now this table as such, it does not exist. Now we are making the table, for your convenience in using some calculation or DAX expressions. Now suppose that I want to, create a new table. I'll just see the, to give the example, I'll just see what are the regions present. Okay, I have these regions. I'll choose some, Cantabria or something. Okay, or Galicia. What I'll do is I'll just click on any table. You just click on new table. Now this is a calculation where I want to make a new table. What I'll write is Galicia data equal to. Now there are multiple functions that you can use here. Even you have this calculator table, but before that I'll use something called filter function. Now many people use this filter function in you like along with the calculate, but you must understand that it returns a table that has been filtered. It returns the table and it also iterates row by row actually. And you have to understand the minute details. The attention to details is required. Here in the filter table, what we have to use is the fact sales. Now I want to filter down the fact sales table based on the filter expression. What could be the expression? I want to find out the region. Okay, here you could see that you have the filter expression called region key, and what you have to do is you have to bring the region key for the relevant region. Okay, if at all I could make a lookup for it, I can bring that to, okay, let me make it simple. For now, before making it complicated, I'll just make this simple as possible. Here in the Galicia we have region key as 12. Okay, so here what we have to do is region key equal to 12. I'll close the parenthesis and hit enter. Now I'm filtering the data. You could see based on the region key, which is 12. If I scroll to the right here, you could see that region key is 12. We have all the 466 rows. Here you could see at the bottom. Okay, that 466 rows, it is available. And all the we have, this is something called as calculated table, where we have created a new table using the filter expression. Now I'll show another example using some function called as calculated table. Okay, the calculate table, if you click over here, you could see that it evaluates a table expression in the context modified by filters. If I click on it again, you'll see the same expressions like table and filter. Now what I'll do, I'll just click on the table, which is our fact sales. Okay, we have this fact sales, and now suppose that we want another like conditions, where are filter conditions where we can write. Suppose I want to,
Give me 1 minute once. I want to acknowledge somebody who just joined.
yes, yes, sir.
I'm thankful that 49 minutes into the meeting, somebody has joined. I'm letting him in. But from next session onwards, we are not going to let anybody in after 10 minutes of the session. Please go ahead, Pranjay.
In the calculate table, in the filter argument, now you could see that I'm typing dim region. Now I could type the region, which is Galicia. Okay, I'll close the parenthesis and hit enter. Now it will bring me the same table with 466 rows. You could see that the same table is returned by both filter function also, and also the calculate table. And you can bring the same table with even with multiple functions. I'll show you. You can ask me, Pawan, why we have these functions if at all we need only one particular thing. We have something called all function. Here you could see it returns all the rows in a table or all the values in a column, ignoring any filters that might have been applied. Okay, now I want, it returns the table. I understood that. In the table, what I'll do is, again I'll use something called filter. Okay, column name I want, or else I'll bring the table. I am not able to use the filter. Okay, now instead of table, I'll use the filter function. In this table, I'll write fact sales, and in the expression, I'll write region fact sales region key equal to 12. Okay, I'll close the parenthesis. I close the parenthesis. Okay, okay, this is my table name. Okay, here what I want is all the column names with respect to the data present. Okay, let us do one thing. Instead of table name, I'll just write directly fact sales, comma, dim region equal to Galicia. Very simple expression. Close the parenthesis. Okay, not being worked out because it is filter. Okay, okay, let us do one thing. I'll bring again, I'll just replicate it for now to avoid confusion, because I need to use multiple functions in order to make it possible. You could see that I have brought all the fact sales table again into my new filtered data table just by applying the all function and without any filters, right? So I can use filter function again. Okay, and this is my alt table expression. I can write region key equal to 12. I'll close the parenthesis and hit enter. It will still give me the same result as earlier because it is removing all the filters which are being acted upon the filter, and it will filter based upon the expression. You have seen 3 or 4 examples for making the calculated tables where it results the table values for the whole table. You can even bring the respective columns. Okay, suppose I want dim customer column. I'll just hit enter. Here you'll see the error. Suppose that I bring it with the values function where the distinct values are brought. Okay, now let us see whether it evaluates or not. Here you could see all the 6,954 unique values. They are unique customers. They are represented in the single column. This is why where where you use the DAX expressions and make them tabular output also. This is what the calculated table is, and I hope you understood. There are multiple functions where it helps you to evaluate and give the output of table. Here even you could use distinct function where it provides the output of distinct values. The only difference between values and distinct is values provide an additional blank row in which the unknown or null values, all those values will be aggregated. Okay, I hope you understood about calculated table meaning, measure meaning, and the calculated column meaning.
Yeah, we have to, I think we have to use this example, listen to it again and practice a little bit, and then we'll be able to perform better. But thank you for explaining that, Bonsai. We had another question in the group, which I felt needed some more explanation. The question was, somebody asked in the group, can we have many to many relationships in Power BI between tables and a data model, right? So this is an interview question also, because this was asked to somebody at an interview. So who can give me the correct answer or a near close answer to the, can we use many to many relationships between tables in a data model? Not Pawnsai and not Nikhil, not Anaga. Who else can answer this question? Can we use many to many relationships between tables in a data model? I mean, I know it's complex, and Shiva Reddy, I think, wrote it gives errors. And what is the right answer? Anyone?
Sir, like if we are calculating on an SQL basis, as we have, like primary key or foreign key basis like that, like a table can have like many relationships. It's the reason is, if like for like during calculations, when we apply this calculating from or filter content or like row context, we'll be able to like implement the data everywhere. That's the reason. So I think that is the main difference, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think that answer was close enough, and I think Sajan gave a very good answer. Let me admit Manase, Sadanand, Sarapure, and somebody else. Hold on. Welcome Manase and Shivpure. I'm happy to see both of you join the meeting. When the meeting has we started 56 minutes back, and welcome Bhavesh Joshi. Thank you for joining the meeting 1 hour after the meeting. Please next time, please, for your own sake, please join the meetings ahead of time, so that you get the most out of the session. So the answer to this question, as rightly pointed out by Sajan, is Power BI supports many-to-many relationship, but it requires the use of an intermediate table, or like Sajan called it, it requires the use of an intermediate table or the bridge table, right? because bridge table is used to create combination of records from the related tables. Let me take an example. Let's say you have two tables, customers and products, right? And each customer can purchase multiple products. Each customer can purchase multiple product, and each product can be purchased by multiple customers, right? So this is a many to many. Each customer can purchase multiple product, and each product can be purchased by multiple customers, right? So if you want to create a many to many relationship, you would need a bridge table which has unique combinations of customers as well as products, right? And then you can build a relationship between customer and product tables, and then you can analyze the data. So it is used for complex data models, and absolutely, Yamini, you are absolutely correct about it. So that's the basic difference. So the short answer was yes, and you can give an explanation, because in the interview, somebody might ask you, does Power BI support it? Yes, it supports it, but there's a way to handle this, and by using bridge tables. So they want to hear the word bridge in that, right? Go ahead, Ponsai.
Yes, yes, sir. Uh, Moving ahead, I hope these things are clear. I could notice few questions which are like row context applies in calculated columns. Okay, and does calculated table work based on filter context? I could say yes and also no based upon the calculated table expression that you write. Because if at all you are filtering based upon a particular column, then a filter context will be acted, but the output which the filter function it returns is a table. Okay, don't get confused with the context and the table. Okay, and what is the difference between filter and calculated table? Filter is a function where it evaluates the expression which you write and it returns the output as table. Calculated table, it is the you know uh, it is one of the property where Power BI evaluates all your DAX expressions, and wherever it is possible for the output as table, it will give it evaluate and give the respective calculations in the form of tabular
At
output.
this stage, I also want to acknowledge and thank Pawan Palkar for joining, Vineet Palkar for joining the session. Thank you for gracing us with your presence 1 hour into the meeting. We're almost about to, we have covered 75% of the class already. So next time, please join on time.
Okay, sir. Moving ahead, let us understand few things about calculate. Okay, and how it acts. And moving further, we shall wrap up after some time, but try to understand how calculate functions and how it helps us at the back end. Now what we shall do is we shall click on the measure table. Okay, I'll write one more expression where using calculate. Now try to understand these expressions. What I'll do is I'll write sales. Okay, I'll write something called Galicia sales. Okay, I wanted to filter the data for Galicia. I'll write calculate. In the first expression, here you could see that calculate, what it does, it evaluates an expression in a context modified by filters. So what it means is whatever the context that you apply within the visual, it will be modified based on the condition that you write here. Okay, modified by the filter conditions, filter arguments that you write here. Don't get confused that if at all filter 1 is used, then it is something called filter function. It is not function, it is argument where you could use multiple functions. Okay, expression, suppose I'll use the same expression which is sum x. Okay, and in the table I have the table name as fact sales. I'll put a comma, I'll write quantity multiplied by price. I'll close the parenthesis for sum x. I'll put a comma. Here in the filter argument, suppose I'll type dim region. Okay, this is my dimension table where I'm filtering the region for Galicia. Okay. Now this filter argument, what it does is it filters whatever the filters which are being acted in the particular visual, it overrides it, and first it applies this filter which is applied by us, and then it will evaluate. Okay, now I could close the parenthesis. Okay, I can close the parenthesis and just commit. Our Galicia sales measure is now made. Let us take a matrix and understand how it is working. I'll take this matrix, very simple matrix, just as a pivot table in Excel. Here in the rows, let us bring something called as customer. Okay, now these are several customers who has made the contribution for the sales or generating revenue. I'll increase the values size to 15. I hope it is visible. Or else I'll increase it to 20. Why is it not increasing? I'll go to grid. I'll go to options. I can increase the global font size. Okay. I hope the customers' names are visible. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to my measure table. I'll first select the sales amount measure which we have written. We know that the total sales amount is 32 million. Okay. Now let us bring the Galicia sales. It is around 12 million, you could say, and you could see that for the customers who has not purchased anything, the sales amount is 0, or you could say blank. The reason is, now try to understand how the context is being acted. Oh, now as soon as I bring the customer into the matrix, this visual what it is creating is, for the sales amount, I have never told the Power BI to go and filter for every customer. As default, what it is doing is, by default filter context is being acted. Okay, it is checking, okay, for this person I have to go back to the table, act the filter on the particular customer column in the dimension table. Since it is connected, it will propagate the necessary rows to the target table, which is our fact sales, and then it will aggregate all the sales amount which is mentioned by the sumX function, and then it will evaluate the total for the respective customer, and it provides us the result. That is a filter context acted by the customer. Now in the Galicia sales, what I have written, that filter context is overridden by this Galicia region. Now for the Galicia region, it will check, okay, this customer, is it Galicia region? No, then don't give the sales. Now for this customer, we have the Galicia sales. Okay, give the output. So that is what the decision making it is doing at the back end. Now let us little change this measure, and let me create a new measure by applying removing filters on that. It will give you some better understanding how it is acting if I am removing the filters. Now I'll paste the same measure. Okay, I'll write something called Galicia sales removing filters equal to, I have the same function in the dim region. Now don't just don't just imagine that it is a simple measure which is being acted. It is not the simple measure which is being acted. I'll tell you, the filter function is being acted here. Okay, the filter function, if at all I write fact sales, I'll put a comma here, the filter region. Okay, instead of fact sales, I'll write dim region. Okay, from the dim region, the filter is being acted, and the Galicia is being filtered out. And even though you should understand that all the filters which are being applied on region, they are kept out. I'll write all, where it removes the filters on everything that you apply. Okay, now this filter function, all the filters are applied on the region, it is removed, and the filter condition expression that you write as Galicia, it overrides the default filter context which is acted by the visual using calculate. Okay, I'll close the parenthesis and hit enter. Now you could let us bring this new measure which I have written. Let us see the output whether it is same or not. Okay, I'll bring in the Galicia sales, removing filters. You could see that it is acting same because you could call it as syntactic sugar, or to make it simple, Power BI engine, it allows us to directly filter the column. Okay, but in the backend, this is what it does. You have to understand this. You have to understand how it is overriding the filter context. Okay, now one more simple thing to show you. Instead of customer, what if I bring the region column where I'm filtering out the regions? Okay, I'll go to dim region, I'll select the region. Can you see this? The total values it is populating in the whole table. Can anyone explain me what is being done here? What is being done in the Galicia sales, and as Galicia sales removing filters? Why is it same? And what happened when I brought region into this picture? Can anyone explain me?
After entering the region, what happens is this Galicia sales and Galicia sales going filters gives you the measure. actually.
Could you
It's taken at
please be a
measure.
little louder, please?
Yes, sure. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. So when you select this region column, what happens is it takes account of all the regions, and I've already we have taken the Galicia sales and Galicia is removing filters as measure. So it gives only the same value. I mean, like not a row context value. It will give you the measure value for all the columns actually. So that's why it gives the same value for like all.
Okay, yeah, you are correct. But in order to be precise, I'll just get back to the measure. If you see the measure, here you could see that by default it must act in filter context. Just because I'm overriding it based upon the expression which I write, it is evaluating the whole, it is removing all the filters which are being acted, and it is providing us the total value for the Galicia. Okay, it is overriding the default filter context which it has. Making sense?
Yes, sir. Understood.
Yes, thank you. Moving ahead, I'll show you few two important things where you have to understand in this. First thing is, in the Galicia sales removing filters, I have shown you how it is being acted and how it is working similarly with respect to Galicia sales. What I'll do is I'll just copy this measure and create another measure to explain you the difference. Okay, now
Once I want to take a small pause here.
yes sir.
Let me bring in. So we all study and then pass certifications or give exams because we want to perform better in the interviews. We prepare well before the interviews. So a lot of people say, I understand DAX, but I'm unable to answer questions during an interview. So keeping that in mind, I will add a few interview questions on an intermediate level or a basic level, you can say basic/intermediate on the DAX topic. So my first question is, well, hold on. Nikita C, I'm thankful that you joined the meeting after 1 hour and 11 minutes of the session. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. So the question here is, and anybody can answer this or note down these few of these questions that have been actually asked in an interview. We learned about calculate here, right? We learned about calculate and how to calculate tables. What is the difference between calculate and calculate table in DAX? The difference between calculate and calculate table, how is that different? Anyone?
I mean, calculate column, calculate function is modified in the context in a filter, whereas calculate table it's evaluates in a table expression in a modifier.
Fabulous answer, Datta. You would have passed this interview. Calculate is used. So basically, calculate is used to evaluate expressions in a modified filter context. When we talk about calculate table, it is used to evaluate expressions in the modified filter context. But calculate table returns a table. It does not return one value, scalar value. It returns a table. That's what the difference is. The other thing is, when we talk about calculate, it modifies the filter context, but it always keeps the row context. Once again, calculate modifies the filter context, but keeps the row context. Whereas when we talk about calculate table, it modifies the filter context, but removes the row content. It completely removes the row content. That is another difference between them. The other question I want to talk about is an exam question, is also an interview question. So if you have to calculate running totals, so we see on the screen we have totals. If we have to calculate the running totals, how do we do that in DAX? What is the formula that I might use? It has to do something with calculate, sum, value, filter, everything. So think about this question. You don't have to answer it right now. Think about this question. How do you calculate a running total in DAX? And then the other question is, how do you calculate a moving average in DAX?
Sir, what's the running total actually?
So I don't want an answer to this right now. Think about these questions. How do we create a running total and how do you create a moving average in DAX? These could be interview questions that come to you. They'll give you a table and ask you to do that. So think about those questions as you practice for the exam or for the interviews. Okay. With that, Pawansai, please go ahead, because I don't want to invest a lot of time into this, but I want to just point out things that I've been noticing that are asked again and again.
Yes, yes, sir. It is very useful actually. Even these questions have to be kept in mind. Even if even if you are BA developer, if you apply for senior BA developer roles, they will check your basics. Okay, how strong are you with basics? Whether you know what you are dealing with.
Yeah, and on the
actually.
same lines, sometimes they'll ask, sometimes they'll flip the question and say, how do you concatenate two or more columns in DAX? So they expect you to know the concatenates function. So those are the functions for concatenation that you are supposed to remember. And we have Ashish Kumar Singh gracing us with his presence after 1 hour and 15 minutes. Welcome, Ashish. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. आपके दर्शन दुर्लभ थे, आज मिल गए, बहुत अच्छा लगा. Please go ahead, Pawansai.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I'll just I'll just copy this measure, and moving ahead, let us understand how this how this filter could be removed, based on the expression we write. Here I'll create again new measure. Now instead of all function which I have written, I'll show you what happens if we use something called as remove filters. Okay, the same expression here I'm just renaming the measure Galicia sales using remove filters. Okay, here in the same dim region, what I'll do is I'll apply something called remove filters, where you can write column name. I'll close the parenthesis. Okay, Galicia. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just take this expression out. I'll just mention the column name over here. I'll put a comma, write the expression in the other filter argument. I'll just commit. Try to understand what is happening in this measure. I'll just go back to my matrix. Okay. In this matrix, I'll add the measure which I have created right now using remove filters. Now you could see it is still, providing us the same output. Try to understand that the same output can be, brought with multiple functions, but you have to understand based upon the performance and what is the best practice and what is the right way to do it. Okay, now here, moving ahead, when you study about performance analysis or start using performance analyzer and evaluate the expressions in DAX Studio and other things, you'll come to know the impact of it based on a particular visual that you apply. Okay, I hope you could explore about it. Moving ahead, let us make another measure and understand how to keep filters, whichever the filters that are being acted, and I'll show you the difference. Okay, what I'll do is I'll copy the same measure which is written in the Galicia sales, and I'll get back to our new measure. Here I'll just copy the same measure. Here what you could do is I'll just paste the same measure. Here try to understand this dim region which I have applied. Now you try using keep filters. Here in the keep filters you can see that input is the expression. You could read that changes the calculate and calculate table function filtering semantics. Nothing to worry, just let us write the expression. Okay, I need to rename the measure. I'll write using keep filters. Okay, now let us watch the difference. What is the difference? I'll just go back to my matrix, select the matrix, bring in the new measure which we have written using keep filters. This is the measure. Now I'll deselect it. Now see here, what you have to understand is wherever the Galicia is present, it is providing us the respective output, and rest of them are blanks. The reason why I'm showing you this key filter is, I'll tell you that what it does is it actually checks the respective value of a region. Okay, it will check, okay, this region, it is a filter being acted based upon the region. Am I finding it as Galicia? Okay, one condition is I have to evaluate the sales, okay, expression which I have written, and another condition is the Galicia which I have to find out. Okay, this Galicia I have to find out. Now is it matching? No, it is not matching, so it can't provide any output. That is what happening till here. Now it has found out the Galicia. Okay, it is matching with the Galicia which I wanted. Then it is filtering the total sales. It is aggregating it and providing us the output. You have to understand that two filters are being acted here. One is the filter which is acted by default, which is region. Another one is the filter which is written by us, which is overriding the default filter context. Okay, that is the reason why I have shown this keep filters function. And removing filters using all condition and using the same by default syntactic sugar of Galicia, you could understand the difference between them. Now as a fun, to prove that this thing could be brought using another measure also. Let us see one more simple measure where you'll get the same output. Okay, I'll just copy this. I'll just click on a new measure. Don't get confused if you are not able to understand. Just watch the recording again and try to practice with any sample data set that you take. Not a problem. Just you need to understand what is what. Okay, this is my new measure. Okay, I'll just write this. I'll make a name, something called as Galicia sales using filter function equal to, I'll write this calculate. Now what we shall do is I'll write something called filter function. We have seen this. Now I'll write this dim region table where I have to filter, and I have to give the expression which is region equal to Galicia. We have our expression which is sum x, and we have the filter argument which is filter function, I close the parenthesis and I'm committing it. Okay, this is my simple measure which is made. Let us bring into the matrix and see how it is working. Again, I'll bring into the matrix. I'll add the data. I'll click on the measure table and I'll just using filter function, I'll add it to the this table. Now I'll scroll to the right. Please allow me a minute.
While Pawansa is doing this, and I know that some of 3 more people joined us, they graced us with their presence. They gave their darshans. I'm very thankful to them. I want to bring up a few things that prevent people from getting a good job in Power BI. Can anybody like the participants? Can you share some of the hurdles we face while trying to get a good job? Anyone? I mean, anybody can speak about it. There are thousands of reasons. You can bring up some reasons.
Sir, actually, I'm a fresher actually.
Okay,
And
fair enough.
I'm applying for many organizations for the role of data analyst actually. I have a good experience in Power BI. I worked on many projects, but still, I know I'm able to even answer the questions. Also, they are like they were able to like answer. But the thing is, they require
Experience.
Experience. That's the only category that's
Okay.
been, a great
Got it.
obstacle for him.
Understood. So one reason that he gave was a lack of actual practical experience, although he has done everything he can. What are some of the other reasons?
So the main reason currently I'm facing is the company not only requires Power BI, they also require some other technologies like AWS,
Fine.
Azure.
Understood. Yeah, because
So
everything is going to the cloud, so that's another reason. That's a good one. What
yeah,
else? I'll tell you some reasons, and you can tell me whether you agree with them or not, or you can add something to it. So some people have limited skills. They are unable to create and the calculations and dynamic visuals. That's one. I've also heard a lot of interviewers tell me, because my own team tells me when they recruit candidates, they have some knowledge in Power BI they can analyze, but they have very basic knowledge of SQL. So one reason cited was limited knowledge of SQL. Another thing is in certain roles. So maybe you're applying for a role where they need some sort of understanding of basic statistics, and many people. So if a role requires some basic understanding of statistics, they don't have it. Then some people are good at everything, but they don't have experience in data cleaning or preparation. So they cannot manipulate the data. They do not know how to clean the data from a unclean data set. Another reason is they have no experience with Power Query, which Pawan Sai was explaining the other day. He took a session on Power Query. So a lot of candidates without experience, they struggle with Power Query. They have limited in some places for certain specific roles. They require basic understanding of data science concepts and techniques. Basic understanding, not advanced. They don't expect you to be a data scientist, but they want you to have basic understanding. But the reason it is cited the most, I'm saying it 3 times, is inadequate storytelling skills. They are not able to craft compelling narratives from the data, because that can make a candidate stand out, and people are lacking in storytelling skills. Most of the time, they are focused only on the technical knowledge, but they ignore the business side, and that's very important. Also, the reason they ask for experience, like Anand pointed out, is sometimes they believe that if you may not have adequate knowledge of business process in a particular industry. So whether it is sales, whether it's retail, whether it's finance, banking, or whatever area you're from, depending upon what you did in your graduation, you could choose a proper area. And Pawan Sai had suggested to people how you should choose projects and what kind of projects you should do. How should a beginner, do those projects? So what they're looking at is not just the Power BI skills, but the knowledge of business process. And if you're not updated with the industry, basic industry trends, like if somebody says, what are the new developments in the field of data analytics? It's a generic question, but majority of people are unable to answer it. Some people, they know everything. I mean, they're good at technical, they have the experience, they have everything else, but the data analysis is very time sensitive, and some people are not able to work under pressure. That's another reason. One reason that is pointed out a lot of times is they have an inadequate portfolio. They do not have the right portfolio of completed projects. So if we see a resume, even yesterday I saw a few resumes which did not have a good GitHub. If you don't include a GitHub, you are most likely not to get selected. I mean, most likely. I mean, people get it without it also, but 90% times they don't. So if you don't have like certain qualifications are needed. No, I mean, people believe that I don't have certification, therefore I don't stand out. That's not so important. It's not a must-have. It can increase. It can be a differentiator, but it's not a showstopper. So don't worry too much about certification initially. You need to worry about practice. And the number one reason, the number one cause, apart from the portfolio and stuff, is the lack of communication skills. You know everything, but you have the inability to articulate your answers well, and you cannot explain whatever data insights you have. So I've been a part of many project presentations. People are unable to explain their data insights to a non-technical stakeholder. And if you are unable to explain technical things to a non-technical person, that is one of the biggest reason. And that's where I say those things cannot come from videos. I mean, you can get awareness from videos. Those things always come from somebody senior in the field. So if I was a beginner, I would go to Nikhil Uppal, I'll go to Anagha Bhate, I'll go to Rushika Kale, I'll go to Pawan Sai, and ask them. I will practice my interviews with them. I'll practice my sessions with them in order to understand what kind of questions might come in, what is the appropriate answer for it, and then write it down, literally write it down. These days, everybody has a laptop or a desktop, and they like to just write their answer on the computer. But I would do it the old way. Write it down on a piece of paper, refine your answer a few times, and then learn how to deliver the answer. That is one of the big things also. So while Pawan Sai was taking a 1 minute break, I thought I would share the common things that I see in all the interviews, in all the things that I've seen. And this is apart from LinkedIn optimization and resume optimization, where everybody calls themselves a guru and they try to, have a session or two on the resume, LinkedIn optimization and resume quantification. And of course, those are important. But beyond that, communication skills are very, very important. Having said that, I'll let Pawan Sai continue with the with the session.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, these things which are told by Arun sir is very, very key things and important things which could largely or hugely impact your life. To be honest, it is not for just now, even for the longer run, 10 years or decade or 2 decades after, you'll still come to hear the same things. The reason is just because they are fundamentals. You can't skip the fundamentals, you can't skip basics and move ahead to the next stages. Okay, thank you so much, sir. And with respect to the Galicia sales, using the filter function which I have written, you could see the measure I have just used the filter function without applying all function, without removing filters on the region. So what it is doing is it works similar to the keep filters function, where it keeps the filters if at all Galicia is acted upon. But if you ask me whether I should go for filter function or keep filters in this respective situation, Power BI itself says that go for keep filters. It to give the optimized output, because try to understand what other people don't know is filter function name. By seeing the name, they believe that filter, this function might be acting in the filter context. No, filter function, it is filtering the data, but it iterates row by row. Okay, just because this row is populated and this the respective values are provided, it doesn't mean that the context is changed. Okay, you have to understand what is context, what is the filters, what is the filter arguments. You have to be clear with you have to pay attention to the details. Now if I bring some other columns into the picture, suppose that I'll bring year column from the date. Okay, just a simple thing. I have this only 1 year data, I think. So instead of 1 year data, what I'll do, I'll bring months into the picture. Okay, so it will show me the respective months and all the measures. Okay, respective months for January. Moving ahead. Okay, we have only January data. No worries. You have to understand that filter function and key filters function, it acts in a similar way, but better way to choose is best practice is to use key filters function. Again, I'll go to the reference document and show you few things. Here there is something called best practices. This is one of the eye-opening thing for people in order to understand few basic things. Let us click on one of it and understand how things are provided. It is mentioned here. You could see that avoiding using filter as filter argument, avoid it, and just try to use keep filters. One of the golden rule in order to filter something is you can filter a column, but do not try to filter it total table. Okay, the reason why it is mentioned is due to the filters being acted and the performance due to I mean based on which the processing output has to be optimized. So this is not said by me. One of the important person in this DAX field related to SQL BI, who is Marco Russo. He has mentioned the same things. You could watch his YouTube videos. He has even explained fantastically. You must go through his videos. But prior to that, get your basics done properly in order to move ahead. So with this light on it, and again I request you to get stronger in these 4 topics, and you'll be mastering DAX after after a few months or years, definitely. Okay, by this I hope you have understood the introduction part, and I hope where you have to focus. These are like 4 pillars of the DAX. If you learn this very well, all the other complex scenarios, other things, you'll be able to do it easily, because you'll have that clear picture of it. You'll get the right path.
So, guys, how many of us want to invite Pawan Sai for future sessions on